Hi everyone, so it's Emma from Healing Space by POC, and today I'm going to be doing an interview, a live conversation with Seshat from the Reality Priestess. So I hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining me, and I'm just going to get my tea ready for our chat this evening. So if you're interested, today I've got some hibiscus and Damiana tea. So hibiscus is quite popular as a tea and a cold drink, Caribbean, West Africa. And then Damiana, that is it's an aphrodisiac, but also it's a mood elevator as well. So just in case you're interested in what I was drinking. So I'm just going to wait for Seshat to request to join the Instagram live. So you just need to press the request. So it's the camera picture with a cross in the middle, and that will request that you join. So I hope you are doing well today. So I'm just gonna accept the request, and there's a bit of delay. Welcome everybody. Hi.
Hello. Also, oh my goodness, we absolutely need a filter. We must sort
Oh,
that out.
oh, you look fine. Don't worry.
Hello.
Yeah. So are you all set up? Are you ready? You're comfortable for our chat this evening?
Yeah,
Yeah. Have you got a tea with you?
I do. Do you
Yeah.
have one?
Yeah. What tea do you have?
I've got, well, actually, I've got a juice, which is like
Mhm.
a blue spirulina. It's one of those innocent drinks. It's like a blue spirulina.
Okay. Is it
Yummy.
nice? Is it nice? Yeah. Oh, amazing. So I'm just welcoming people onto the live and just, thank you for joining us. So you're welcome to just let us know where you're joining from. It's really nice when we have that interaction. So I can see the multi-ethnic queen has joined. So welcome, and do let us know where you're joining from. So let me just get myself comfortable and get a bit of my tea. So I was just saying my tea is hibiscus and Damiana today.
Nice.
So I thought I would go for a mood elevator with the Damiana, which I was also saying is an aphrodisiac. And then with the hibiscus, which is it's got a lot of vitamin C in actually. So Ekta said, hello friends, journey with compassion. Hi Ekta, how are you doing? So Sesha, are you comfortable? Are you ready with that filter? Are you going to stay with that one? Yeah. Okay, so what we usually do at the beginning is we can just quickly introduce ourselves to let people know who we are, and that's really up to you what you'd like to share in your introduction. So my name is Emma, and my pronouns are she, her, and I am African Caribbean and white British, and I run Healing Space by POC, which is a wellness and holistic space for Black women and women of colour to have our lived experiences centred and to really have a place to learn, to share, and grow with each other and in community, as safe community as possible. And I teach yoga, meditation, retreats, and very interested in African spirituality as well. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. I am Seshat, which is my spiritual name. I'm a life coach, a spiritual teacher, and also a business consultant, which I have been for very many years. So, yeah, wearing multiple hats.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that you're a business consultant, so that's really interesting.
Bills, business consulting, pays the bills.
And so you're in London, aren't you, as
Yeah,
well?
based in London.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess relevant to this is I was born in London, but I am of Nigerian heritage. Both of my parents are Nigerian. They are Yoruba.
Amazing. And we're going to go into that conversation. So we met at we met last month, didn't we? We met at the day retreat, the self-care and healing day retreat. So that was the first time that we met. But we have chatted a little bit on Instagram, haven't
Yeah.
we? And kind of, DM'd and things like that. But I really wanted to bring you on because I read your, so you have that article on your Instagram page, and I thought that just sounds really interesting. And I'm sure lots of people are going to find different parts of your story relatable. And also, I know you've done a lot of learning about different spiritual practices. So I know you're going to have a wealth of knowledge and, maybe helping people who are new to the healing and spiritual practices, but also I'm sure people who are further down the line, they're going to find, that they're going to learn things from you, or maybe they can say, yeah, I've been through that as well. So we can know that we're not on our own through this journey of life. So thank you for joining us live. I'm just going to quickly say, so please just let us know where you're joining from. Estelle Bingham, Woolly Moles as well. Thank you for joining. So shall we start off? You start off in your bio about talking about your childhood experiences, and only if you feel comfortable to share, for this chat, it's really up to you what you feel is best for you today. But you stated that your early upbringing was within a very strict Christian household, and it was very dominating, and also it was quite abusive with your mother as well. So if you wouldn't mind just maybe sharing.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess for context, right? So I was brought up in a home, a single mum, not with my dad, and it was just me. I'm an only child on my mother's side.
Mm-hmm.
Our whole family was Christian, my extended family, etc.
Mm-hmm.
My mum in particular was very devout. She's very spiritually gifted as well.
Mm-hmm.
Really a prophetess, really. She's got amazing spiritual gifts of insight. And she had so my parents were never married. And my mum ended up having to come to the UK when she was pregnant with me because essentially, she got pregnant out of wedlock.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of shame associated with that. She was a very prominent family. And also my dad's family were very prominent, but they were not keen on him marrying her. He was from a Muslim background, and that actually was a lot of the issue, was that they had two different religious beliefs. So she came here, and I think she experienced a lot of depression, having to do this on her own. And as time went on, I think what ended up happening was the development of the onset of very serious mental health issues, which I didn't realise at the time because I was really young and it was the only I knew. So I grew up there were some elements of my childhood which were amazing and lovely, and then she did the best that she could with me. But actually when as I was getting older and more into sort of like high school, sort of 16, 17, she became really unwell, and when I was about 17 experienced a psychotic break, which again I didn't know what it was at the time. And there were definitely spiritual components of that too. And I've speculated, and part of my journey has been trying to understand what really I experienced. But what differently to that was she experienced very high levels of paranoia, and that really impacted me and us in terms of I became very socially isolated. No one was allowed to come around to the house anymore, and because I was so young, I didn't really know how to navigate that. And obviously Nigerian culture is very hierarchical in general, so it's kind of situation where you feel like you can question your parents and so I essentially was kind of going through my teenage years, my early 20s, of being really quite isolated. In the meantime, also trying to build a life and a career for myself. My mum wasn't working, so I essentially was doing the caring, the breadwinning, literally the everything. which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, particularly if you're Nigerian. There's a lot of pressure on the children, the firstborns, especially if you're an only child, to do a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it took me, a big part of my story is me waking up to that, actually. I would say my spiritual awakening was really first the awakening that I was being abused, right? The was being used to suppress me, to tell me, you know, despite everything I was doing, I was never good enough at home. I was told a lot that that I was evil, actually, that I was being like possessed by demons, this sort of thing. And now back, I'm like, this is sort of really silly. But at the time, I took all of these things to heart. You know, it's not.
Of course. You're a child, weren't you? And as a child, we take it as normal because we don't know any different, do we?
Don't know any different. And to be honest, you know, because this went on so long into my adulthood, really, I can't around it, because now I've woken up from it. I'm like, well, why didn't I extract myself from that situation earlier? Like, I liken it a lot to being in sort of if someone has dealt with domestic violence or been in a cult, or
yeah,
like, well,
yeah,
like what happened to me?
Yeah,
Shame associated with not being able to kind of get yourself out of that situation. That's really the beginning of my story. And through that time, I developed my own sort of faith. So my mum was very Christian, but actually she had stopped going to church quite early on in my childhood. I started going to church on my own and getting to know people, which she wasn't a big fan of, actually. And developing a relationship with what I described as Jesus or God, and developing my spiritual gifts, which I started to understand that I had. And I think I really was one of those people who considered myself to be quite critical, like a critical thinker. Like, so, you know, I was good at school. I felt like I understood also the academic aspects of Christianity, etc. But I was extremely devout, extremely. Even though I did question my faith, I questioned it a lot, but it only led to sort of deeper and deeper faith. So I was like a super Christian.
Sorry, your thing just keeps cutting out a little bit. It's like the odd word. I'm getting the conversation, but
Let
there's
me.
just
I wonder if I just a second.
yeah, just maybe just check your Wi-Fi or oh.
Oh, I'm not sure what's happening with the I think it's the Wi-Fi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah. So did you switch something? Because you just
I
frozen them.
so hopefully.
Yeah, we'll keep going. We'll keep going, and because I'm getting all of it, but it kind of just like the sound goes a little bit, and I'm like, just wanting to make sure everybody's, you know, following on with what we're saying in the story. So
Working on my hotspot but yeah, let me know.
yes, I will do. Yeah, if I'm like I'm not quite, if you know, if it's just cutting out a tiny bit and I'm still getting it, we'll keep going. But if it's getting to the point where I'm not sure I can hear everything and I'm not sure on what you're saying, then I will let you know. So yeah, so just carrying on from, so you had your own, so you said, well, you were kind of at that point where you were saying about you developing your own, sorry, no, you were saying that you're very devoutly Christian, but your mother didn't go to church, even though she was very devout herself.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so I think that's where you were in your story.
Yeah. So that's kind of, you know, that's the history, right, in terms of where I'd come from.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to that story, and first of all, thank you for sharing, because you know that's a lot that you've experienced, and it takes a lot of bravery to, like you said, acknowledge what happened, and also the shame around not speaking up, and why didn't I get away sooner? But I'm sure many people who are going to watch this have been in exactly the same experience, whether it's, you know, like you said, it could be with a cult, it could be domestic violence, it could be within a family unit as well. So first of all, just thank you, because I know sharing that, that's going to be healing for other people to hear, and to know that, you know, it's something that we as victims, it's not anything to be ashamed of, you know, and people go through very complex experiences, and as a child we don't have the knowledge that we do as an adult. So sometimes we can be very critical as an adult and think, well, why didn't we do this, why didn't we do that? But we're like, we were a child. So we didn't know, and we did the best we could, and that's, you know, we have to try and do the best we can as adults and release that shame, like you said. And I think talking about it does release the shame as well. So thank you for sharing. And so also you did say that your dad's side was Muslim. And so was that a part of your upbringing, or was it more of a distant kind of, that wasn't really in your day-to-day sort of life?
Yeah, it was pretty distant. So I had stopped speaking to my dad when I was probably about 15. And again, under the influence of my mother, right? She was like very anti him and very paranoia about him. It was something that was sort of over there. And actually one of the reasons why there was tension between my parents is because my dad had wanted to raise me himself, and he raised me as a Muslim. So he wasn't very happy about me being raised as a Christian. So yeah, it was something in the background, something that I wanted to study, and actually tried to study when I was at university a little bit, like through friends and things. My mum was very anti it. She was like, quick way to lose your faith as a Christian, study other religions. Yeah.
So there was a lot of from her, there was a lot of fear of you learning from other people, learning new things, and being around other people, and like you said, that isolation. So, you know, at that point where you realized this is, you know, very unhealthy, did you find that you were still quite isolated, or did you have people to kind of help you move through the next sort of phase and find your own life, I suppose?
Yeah. So I had nobody.
Oh,
So I had people around me, but it took me a really long time to actually start sharing my story with people that I would consider to be friends at the time. But what ended up happening was I ended up buying a place and moving out, and this was really the beginning of me kind of reclaiming my life for myself. And physical distance allowed me the emotional distance, right, to then begin start processing what I had actually been through, and also what my personal views were on faith, on everything really, to be quite spirituality in particular. And that was all really accelerated by COVID, because I think I don't know about you, but for me, like, I had a lot of time. I had a lot of time with myself to like think, process, and it gave me the headspace, right, to really challenge what I personally believed. So one of the key things that I realized, even though I'd always considered myself to be a Christian and a very devout one, in practice, my beliefs were different to, you know, what the Bible was, and actually what my mum's interpretation of Christianity was. So I was very much more interested in sort of the teachings of Jesus and the sort of the compassionate side of it. She was very much Old Testament, fire and brimstone version of Christianity, and that led me to sort of more progressive. So I started to sort of conclude by sort of a process of elimination and logic that whatever God was wouldn't be afraid of me exploring and challenging and questioning. I was like, I just kind of got to a place of like, it must be okay to question, because you want someone to worship them that doesn't have independent thought.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, so a while back, I don't know if you're following my page, but I did have somebody else who joined for a talk, and she was in a Christian cult herself, and it's very similar to what you were saying about this not allowing your own thoughts. It's almost like every thought had to be very rigid, and if you thought outside of what was told to you, this was dangerous and very fearful. And stay very much, your mind is occupied 24/7. So I was just thinking about that conversation and the similarities of, I suppose it was based on fear, wasn't it? That if you go outside, something bad is going to happen. You're going to be punished, or it's evil, and and I suppose it's really that. Sadly, religion has been used to control people, hasn't it? And we can see that throughout history, where Christianity was used to, within the colonization, to justify the transatlantic slave trade. So people use they got what they wanted by saying it was the religion that's saying this, but actually, I mean, I can't personally say, because I have never read the Bible, I haven't been brought up within that religion, but from my understanding, it seems, yes, people can have their own interpretations that are very, very different. And is it really serving the individual, or is that the genuine teachings of that religion?
Yeah.
And then, so following this, so you from a Yoruba, is it Yoruba or Yoruba? How would you say it?
I would say Yoruba.
Yoruba.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got it right. Yoruba.
Yeah.
Yay. So that was your that's the ethnic group. And so how was that, how did you experience that within the Christian household? Was there aspects that were brought in and kind of syncretized, or how did you experience that?
Yeah, so really interesting. So I would say in two ways, really. So actually, after my mum started to get really ill, she really almost in a sense developed her own spirituality, which although she was as Christianity, it was, I would say, a Christian probably would look at it and not consider it really to be Christianity.
Yeah.
And she was doing a lot of work sort of documenting our family history and things like that. And so actually through that, I really started to understand some of the stories, like our history, like our tribe, what was the history of it, our particular like clan and family within the tribe, what was the history. I think I talk in that article about my great grandparents, who were the Oba and the Olori, which is essentially the king and queen of like that community. For those who don't know that much about sort of Nigerian Yoruba culture, there are many communities like this, right, that have got a king and a queen, and that is what we call traditional rulership. And traditional rulership goes hand in hand really with traditional religion. However, because of colonization, etc., actually you'll see a lot of traditional rulers today are Christian or Muslim. And so in my family, they were Christian. It's something they were very proud of. Like, the missionaries came and like taught them about Christianity because they associated that with being civilized, like being civilized.
Yeah.
But the very nature of it was syncretized because those traditions come from our religion, essentially. So I learned about that through those stories. And my mother actually had been raised by those grandparents. She'd been raised by her grandparents. So she grew up in the compound, in the palace, if you like, with them, seeing the traditional religion practiced, syncretized with Christianity. She witnessed. So I heard about that. So that was one aspect. But then the other aspect was my early experiences of Christianity growing up. It was all African church. And I've come to realize now how similar that all of that is. African church is not like British church at all. So that it's very esoteric in a sense. There's a lot of, it's a lot about spirit. And so that was essentially, and my mum was very heavily into that side of so I experienced it through that lens as well.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day and talking about the difference between a black church and a white church, and saying actually a black church has got so many African traditional religion influences. However, the people going to the church may not realize that actually this is not, if you, because I did as a child go to Church of England, and that is completely different. It is quiet. It is, dead quiet. Nobody's standing up. Nobody's clapping. Nobody's moving around. There's no singing. There's no dancing. However, people from, from African churches, Caribbean churches, the, like you said about the spirit and the music, drumming, dancing, singing is all part of African traditional religion. However, people don't realise that actually you're not actually practicing Christianity at all.
Yeah.
However, it's been called, oh yeah, this is Christianity, but it's like, no, if you go to a white British, Church of England service, you will be shocked that it is so different. And or maybe like, I suppose Catholicism has quite a lot of esoteric things, probably more than Church of England, so maybe that might be slightly similar.
Yeah, but the expression of it is extremely different.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's all the way it's expressed is just
yeah,
different.
very, very African, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you then seek out, did you go more into your African religion? Did you seek out community, and how did that sort of come about?
So I would say my approach was kind of very intellectual, right? So as I started to, there were a number of things that happened that kind of took me on the journey of looking at other things, and I started to research a number of things. One of them was really the Bible itself, because I really did, I wanted to understand the truth. I'm a life path 7. We're like spiritual seekers. It's like we must know the answer. What is the right answer? And so I really went heavily into the Bible first, and I started to understand from reading it, this was a book for a different group of people. Everything within, particularly the Old Testament, is for the Jews. It's for the people of Israel. But I'm not from Israel, so this book for me, and some things in there that pointed to the idea that every ethnic group should have their own spirituality.
Oh, okay.
It's
quite interesting
interpretation of what's in the Bible, and there were a number of people. I started to find people talking about that. That's what started me on the journey of, okay, so if that is for that group of people, really, or what for my group of people? And then I started to research African spirituality, and obviously I started with Yoruba because that's my lineage, and I could see obviously it was becoming very popular. It was making its way into the mainstream, etc. And so I really was hoping that the answer was going to be there for me. And in some ways it is. It's not that I have I can talk a little bit about what my interpretation of that spirituality is now, but so I started to do research and understand how people were practicing it. So by this time I have reconnected with my dad, which is a story for another day, but I asked him some questions as well, because he lives in Nigeria, and he has done this whole time. And also my mum's side of the family, there were some cousins and people who were essentially going back to African spirituality as well in the family. So this was sort of the beginning of the journey, looking into it, understanding that every ethnic group or nation has got their own mythologies, their own spiritual systems, their own gods, if you like, pantheon. And what did that look like from a Yoruba perspective? I also looked at Egyptian, Kemetic. I really looked at everything. I looked at Vodun. I looked at many things, sort of a research perspective, and a lot of online communities around it. And so this is where I started to find, oh my goodness, this is just the same as Christianity. And actually, in a sense, it's worse because people are going there looking for freedom from where they felt they were in bondage before.
So in what way was it worse? Just so people can...
So not the practice. So this is when I say we're finding the same thing, what do I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean specifically about hierarchy, even the whole nation, notion of worship. So if you can imagine all the things that I've been through, the thing that I'm really starting to understand is personal power,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that we should that way. And what I was seeing in Ifa in particular, though I think there's a lot of commonalities across of many of the religions, was the enforcing of hierarchy, the abuse of people's money,
Yeah.
the expense associated particularly with initiation,
Mm-hmm.
and then behind all of that, like the actual practices, I wasn't seeing them having the weight and the power that people are looking for in those religions, to be quite honest. And the reason why I felt it was worse is because people were going back to these religions with so much expectation.
Yeah.
That's linked to a sense of identity and what it, they finally left something and understood that they're worthy of something for themselves, and their heritage.
Yeah.
And taken a lot to embrace that, and then they're essentially getting manipulated by their own people, which is kind of like slavery all over again if you kind of look at it. And this is why it was so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Mainly the abuse of power, the abuse
And I suppose, because sadly, coming from yoga, Buddhism, things like that, within every religion or spiritual community, this is what happens. There is this abuse of power where there is a charismatic leader who has their own agenda, and they use the practice, the religion, people's vulnerabilities to gain something personally. So I think it's a really important thing to point out so other people can be aware, and like you said, having your own power is so important. Whatever religion, whatever practice you go to, and I think they all have their own merits.
Yeah, me too.
However, the people you've got to watch out for. Who are the people who are talking? Who are the people who are deciding the rules and taking the money, like you said, and all the rest of it? Because it can just be another place to control people. And like you said, the money aspect. And also, I think with a lot of religions, spiritual practices, people are looking for something. They're searching for something because they feel there's something missing. So there's an automatic vulnerability in the seeker, and this is where people take advantage because they say, I have the answer, you're not whole, you're not good enough, so I'm going to impart my wisdom. And this is, like you said, the hierarchy, that this person has, a right to do whatever they want, which nobody does, of course. However, they can use their manipulation tactics. So you felt that, you moved into that, and then it was very disappointing again that you found actually this hierarchy and taking away power, this is happening again. So did you initiate, or was you like at a stage, so you didn't get to that point?
Never initiated, and I've really kind of looked at all of this from the window, and I have thoughts about initiation, because the other thing is that I am Yoruba, right? So
exactly, I was going to say, like, you don't actually need to be initiated.
Right, and so
yeah. You don't need to be. It's already a part of your
exactly, it's in your
heritage, and
your
history.
Right. I think the other thing that people don't quite appreciate is that Ifa is a religion. So talk about African spirituality, and that is quite a broad umbrella, but African traditional religions are religions. In and of itself is the problem, because of abuse of power and the potential for abuse of power. So I think there's practices within all religions that are interesting, useful, potentially, but the construct of it lends itself to abuse, just the nature of it. The other thing that I was really impacted by was I was starting to understand, well, I'd kind of got to this place where I realised that worship, that the concept of worship, right, can be good or bad. And we really should be admiring or revering images that look like us. So and I talk about this in one of my articles about why a white Jesus is so problematic for people of colour, right? if you're a black woman, your image of God should be a black woman. That's
Mhm.
my
Could you just touch on why it's harmful? Because I think that would be great just to say if yeah, just go ahead with that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it comes back to this point about hierarchy, right? And I think that if we put anything on a pedestal, the main thing we put on a pedestal is a god-like figure. So we put our parents on a pedestal first. We put our bosses on a pedestal. We put people in political leadership on a pedestal, business leaders, etc. Right. But the most important of those is spiritual leadership and the idea of the divine. And if we constantly see images of people that we consider to be ahead of us because of that hierarchical concept that looks so different to us, we are going
Mhm.
to see ourselves as inferior. There's no way we won't
Mhm.
do that. That's how it.
Yeah, it creates the inferiority complex, which it reinforces it, doesn't it? Which is, you
Yeah,
know, how colonization and the transatlantic slave trade, that was a core of the process, wasn't it? To make Africans feel less than, to feel primitive, that it's less developed, less intelligent, and that was one way of doing it. And it's a very stark thing when you're not in the religion, but it seems to be a very
it's like taken for granted.
yeah, it doesn't sit,
Yeah.
yeah, because I haven't really been fully in it. Um, and even as a child, I just felt very uncomfortable. I just thought, I don't know, why am I here? This doesn't feel like I'm welcome here. Like the people don't look like me. The way they're speaking doesn't sound like me. And again, I think I probably went to maybe like a Sunday school. I probably asked a question. I probably asked too many questions. That's always been my thing. That I'm somebody who thinks and I ask questions, and you know, as a woman, mixed race, black woman, we get into trouble for asking too many questions, for being too this, too that. So yeah, I don't think, even at a very young age, I realised you don't ask questions here,
Well,
sadly.
this point about the image, right? So my first one was like, okay, why am I worshipping a white anything? Should
Hmm.
so then started me on the Ifa journey. But then the next bit of it was, then what about the feminine? What about
Yeah.
the divine? What's the role of the feminine in creation? Right, this concept of the mother divine.
Hmm.
And in Ifa is a patriarchal religion, and this is something that people don't like to talk about, you know.
Hmm.
And for me, that the fact that the patriarchy is so pervasive within it was again it put me off. And it not only put me off, it made me start to investigate further as to why this was the case, because we know enough about our history to know that we really have been matriarchal
Hmm.
for from time immemorial, really. But something has changed at a particular point in time.
Hmm.
And you can see, you know, if you kind of understand how you guys put together, you can see the traces of the feminine within it.
Hmm.
uh, but and you can kind of work out that it has been taken over at some point. This is controversial, and some people may not like what I have to say,
Hmm.
but but the fact that it is so patriarchal, even with the whole concept of babalawas, some sects don't allow women to be priests, right?
Hmm.
And we understand the inherent spirituality of women, right? And this is what we had in the church. Can women be prophets? Can they be apostles? Can they be pastors? It was exactly the same. So these were some of the things that I started to understand. And as I started to do more work around, well, what are the orishas? What and also the equivalents in different pantheons, what do they represent? And my conclusion was they really represent divine principles and laws of nature. And then nature is really the thing that we should be paying attention to, the way it's constructed, the way it's ordered. And nature doesn't imply a hierarchy. So how can I sort of embody and understand and be grateful for the divine principles that are represented by the Orisha without creating a parent-child relationship with deity or with divine principles?
Hmm.
Uh, and so this is kind of how my spirituality has evolved, which is like not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Like I really have a lot of appreciation for my history and the traditional religion I've come from, but also understanding that the reason it's oral is so that it can be fluid and it can evolve, and that
and it would change with societies.
exactly.
Certain powerful people may tweak things to suit their needs at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, and I suppose something I would love to ask you, why do you think this tradition is the most popular within the African diaspora? Like, it seems to be, yeah, it's definitely the most popular, you know, definitely pop culture, online, like, where's this come from? How has the Orishas, like, blown up? However, most people wouldn't be able to tell you about the Igbo pantheon, or just like, you know, people who were very close, but for some reason the Orishas, what happened? Who started it? How did this happen?
It's a great question. I mean, I won't pretend to like know the answer to it, but what I have found really, really interesting is that for whatever reason, that was the one that was preserved, one of the ones preserved during the slave trade, right? So the fact that it is practiced in a Spanish-speaking country, they've really have kept it alive. If I'm quite honest, it's fascinating because when people talk about Ifa, you know, or Ifa associated religions, because not everything is, I would say, Isheshe, right? Isheshe is the traditional, as it's practiced in Nigeria. But then you've got all of the sort of the other ones. You've got Santeria, and you know, Lukumi, and all of these other ones that are talking about the same Orisha, but slightly different versions of the religion. And I think, if I'm honest, I think that a lot of the practices really come from the Americas are espousing the way we do things. Even the concept of initiation, the way that we do it now, is really a product of what's happening in the Americas and not what's happening on the continent.
Yeah.
So I think that's some of it, and you know, popular culture and all of that helps. Particularly, I think it's driven a lot by our African American brothers and sisters looking for something themselves, and that just the popularity of the Orishas, people have been searching and going back to, well, where do they really come from, or these come from Yoruba.
I suppose, you know, like in the post I did, or the email that I sent about Beyonce. So Beyonce, the most well-known singer, beloved, she was one of the people to bring it forwards into pop culture. So maybe that had an impact on it as well, where people were more aware, they were more open, it was more cool, it was seen as more desirable, because obviously Beyonce, that's part of her, is about desirability and the Oshun, so it's like the sexual, and you know, and I suppose it's almost like, I think Oshun, she's got this thing about being very I don't know, it doesn't it's almost like it's slotting into our pop culture much more easily, Oshun, compared to some of the other Orishas who may be a bit more challenging, and like, you know, Oshun seems to be like, oh yeah, we'll go to the river and the honey, and it just seems all nice and like, do you know what I'm trying to say? That it's most palatable. It's made it palatable when it's not. You're not really getting to the roots and the heart of the matter, which is a bit more complex.
Yeah, and even Oshun, I mean, it's interesting. I think that has a lot to do with the divine feminine and how popular that concept is becoming.
Yes.
Representation of that. But a lot of people don't realize Oshun has many aspects, right? And it's not just love and light, you know. She's got a shadow. They all do, right? They've all got a shadow aspect to them. Yeah, I think Oshun in particular is very accessible for a lot of people. But from a male perspective as well, Shango, that is also the other paired. So that's the other one I see. Is like they want to be the warrior.
Yeah, and I suppose the way that they have been popularized has really slotted into our um, kind of very binary woman, sexy, beautiful, man, warrior, um, and they've they've almost morphed into our culture that we have now, rather than actually seeing what they maybe really are, you know. So I think maybe there's a little bit of like ignoring some of the different aspects so it can fit in with like, we're going to light a candle, we're going to wear this color, we're going to, which is all very, it's part of it, but it's the more surface level, aren't they? They're the more surface level things that everybody can access, and it's not to say that's not, you know, there's no judgment. However, there is lots of layers, and they seem to have just been very one dimensional. That's probably what I'm trying to say. And what you're saying as well, there is the love and light, which comes into, you know, new age spirituality. So it probably has become a little bit new age as well.
Yeah,
But within African traditional religions and spirituality, there isn't just the love and the light. There is always the shadow. There is always um, the other side, you know, which is very different to the new age spirituality at the minute. So you've really had a lot of experience researching, learning for yourself. So where do you see yourself now? What's your kind of practices, and how have you found that empowerment in your own spirituality?
yeah. So, so one of these is kind of linked really to the concept of the Orisha. One of the challenges that I have, again, with how people are engaging African traditional religion, particularly far, is this obsession with the Orisha, actually. Because the most important Orisha is your Ori,
Mm-hmm.
and is the concept of the higher self, really, the divine self,
Mm-hmm.
concept of destiny in Yoruba. And for me, my spirituality absolutely centers around this concept of my Ori, my destiny, my purpose, what I came here to do,
Mm-hmm.
what I came here to embody, experience, and express. Um, and getting rid of this concept again of the hierarchy of like a parent-child
Mm-hmm.
relationship with source, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, ourselves, and more of a peer relationship, and coming from a place of creation and power.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, I would say, the source of it, and then recognizing the spirit that is in all things.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, what does that look like in practice? That is tuning in a lot to what I want and desire, um, and a lot of self-love and acceptance. So recognizing that we all come here with gifts, with weaknesses. We come here, you know, with a variety of experiences that that we go through, and that makes us who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of cookie cutter. It's not trying to be um, a specific archetype, although we've got many archetypes in us. It's being our authentic self. That's our highest being, the character we came here to play. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that through meditation, through journaling, through manifestation, and gratitude. You know,
Mm-hmm.
grateful, and gratitude in particular for the divine principles, for nature, for because
Mm-hmm.
we live in a symbiotic relationship in the world where we all need each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that those are the things I try to focus in my spiritual practice.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. That sounds like very similar to some of the concepts that I try to think about, embody, and practice as well. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to kind of just begin to wrap up this conversation, because I'm keeping an eye on time. So I'm just going to check comments. So Samantha said, perhaps people pick and choose what suits in relation to the Orisha. And I think that's what people are doing. However, when you get in the tradition, that's not how it works, is it? You don't just choose your Orisha. It's a different process. So people might think is it what the son of something or some, is that what people say? They're like, oh, my Orisha is this, but actually you don't choose.
Yeah, I mean, and this is one of, I mean, I understand that right from it. And this is the thing, so religion, right? So if you're in a religion, you need to follow the religion. But on
Yeah.
a spirituality point of view, I do a lot with divine archetypes, right? I think this is a fundamental concept. And I help people understand what their divine archetypes are. I don't
Mm,
think there's anything wrong with understanding what the characteristics are and the stories are with
mm,
different deities, and understanding which resonates with you and which ones
mm.
don't. Because it's all helpful to understanding yourself.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah. And I think, what you said throughout is about learning. So even if something you've had a bad experience with it, you still want to learn and make your own
Yeah.
decision and what is true to me and what is right to me. So yeah, I think so yeah, thank you so much for those. Thank you for the conversation today. I found it really amazing, and I know people are going to be, really interested in this conversation. Whether they're on the live, I know people will watch on the replay as well. And you've been really gracious with your time. You've been very open about your some of your traumatic childhood experiences and that bravery that you've brought through. So I really appreciate this time that we spent together. So
Space. No, it's been good to have a conversation about these.
yeah.
I do geek out,
Oh,
so it's been
yes, yeah, I love it. I'm like, yay, we can talk about this. And I could talk about it for hours. So that's why I'm like, right, we need to wrap this up, because I would just be like, right, I need to know this and this. Um, but if people I don't know if what you're doing at the moment, if people like have any questions for you, or I'm not sure if you're offering things in the future, or or people can read your articles and things like that. Where can people find you?
yeah. So I had stopped doing spiritual blueprint readings because I felt like I wanted to integrate them more into more of a holistic package. So I will
Mm-hmm.
be hopefully later on in the year kind of integrating it with more of a holistic transformation
Mm.
program. But yeah, if people have got questions, I'm always up for a chat. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got
Mm-hmm.
if you want to talk about anything, my DMs are open.
Mm-hmm. Amazing, thank you. So I'll just wrap up the conversation and just let you know some of the things I'm doing as well. I'll plug myself. So I was saying at the beginning that we met at the self-care and healing day retreat. So that was amazing in London, and it's really inspired me to keep creating and connecting, because I think that's one of the most powerful things, was actually coming together, meeting like-minded people, sharing and learning. So if you're in the Birmingham area or surrounding towns, I have the next one on the 12th of August, and that's open to everybody, so all levels, all body shapes and sizes. And we're going to have a yoga practice, relaxation, herbalism, and then we're also going to talk a little bit about divine destiny and some journaling, and trying to maybe get some personal insights and finding your calling for yourself as well. So if you're interested in that, please do have a look at the link in the bio. And one other thing, actually, before you go, that I will plug. So I posted about my Goa Relax and Renew retreat, and we were having a really interesting conversation about Eat, Pray, Love. So just before we go, we do have to talk about that, because that's your favourite film, Eat, Pray, Love.
That's one of them. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. How many times have you watched it?
I don't, so many times. I've watched it so many times. And do you know what it is? Is that as I've been going through this journey, I just really identify with that character needing to like find herself
Mm-hmm,
in all of the
mm-hmm,
way, by the way. Like, there's the
mm-hmm.
spiritual side, the relationship side, it's all of the things. And so
The
I
food, well, that was important.
yeah, so all of these for me, I do
Yeah,
I do agree that
yeah. And I think it's the thing about self-empowerment, isn't it? And power and control to be a woman and to take your own journey and, live your own truth and do that fully independently, especially after the things that you talked about, where there wasn't that independence. independence, and now we see this like independence and the world opening up and meeting new people, spirituality. So yeah, that definitely influenced me to take my first solo trip to Bali. It did, even though it's a bit cheesy, it did. Yeah, I have to admit that I did like it, and it helped me to, nudge. Even though Julia Roberts, she's not a relatable person, she's a millionaire actress, but
This is why I think the Go thing is super interesting, right? So I've done a few of those kind of like solo trips in different places, but I've
Mhm.
gone to that part of the world. And so if you've
Mhm.
not done Eat, Pray, Love properly, unless you're in that, because, unless you go to India or you go to Bali or something, you've not done Eat, Pray, Love properly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, amazing. So thank you so much for our time together. And thank you, everybody who has watched on the live or the replay, Oh, sorry, just. But yeah, so thank you so much. And I will be letting people know about the next conversation that I'll be having in a few weeks' time. So take care, everyone, and I'll see you all soon. Bye. Thank you.